And I was not of the mind all season that Bill would go to Dallas in any kind of way because Mike Kraft is there. They're playing well. They've got a good record. Bill wants personnel control. However, in light of the last comment that we just deliberated and went through, that he might be willing to give up personnel control, that is a front office, given what I understand is a good relationship with Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones from Belichick, that he would probably have a say and be okay not with having final say, as Bill Parcells did, which is another little bit of beautiful symmetry here. What do you think about Dallas? If they lose on Sunday, that Bill wants to wait and drag this out, if anything, just to give his market a chance to balloon a little bit?
I don't think there's any question. And Dallas is a situation that I'm sure he looks at and says, boy, I can get the record pretty fast there.
Yes.
That's doable. And I could get the trophy and then shove it up all your hindquarters in New England that doubted me and thought that I should be gone and wanted to turn it over to Mayo or someone else. And like the whole notion, absolutely.
All right, you know him as Mike Giardi, the Boston Sports Journal. I know him as a gambling man because I am a gambling man as we sit here on the Pats Interference Podcast brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. And it's not because we are putting our money on the Patriots or any other NFL team. It is because we are putting our time on the line. It is 4:30 Monday night, Black Monday, as it's known in the NFL. Bill Belichick's job very much in the air. So as we record, we are running the danger of some sort of announcement, even though our good mutual friend Tommy Curran says do not expect an announcement here today regarding Belichick. Instead, what we have is a lot from Bill in his morning press conference. We have nuggets from you, a state of the locker room, and basically anything but that wretched 17-3 snowy snooze fest against the Jets, which will go down in the history books. I don't have to write them, and neither do you. So let's talk about Bill Belichick, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So here's the latest. Again, 4:35, now 4:36, Monday night. This is where things stand. No announcement yet. Silence from the Krafts. Bill Belichick's comments, of all of them, there were two that were notable. We'll get to those in a second. In the meantime, Atlanta, which fired Arthur Smith overnight, is reportedly interested in hiring, or at least interviewing, Bill Belichick, according to Diana Rossini of The Athletic. Mike Vrabel, meanwhile, in Tennessee, according to Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report, would have interest in coming back to New England if he's let go by the Titans, who also are weighing their future with Vrabel, according to multiple reports. Scott Zolak today on Zolak and Bertrand hinted that he doesn't believe the meeting between Bill and Kraft today. So maybe we're making the minus 10,000 bet just by recording, but we're gambling anyway. We're gambling men. Anything to add to all of that?
I'm not surprised the Vrabel stuff's starting to pick up some steam. If you look at the way the Titans have played over the last year and change, it's a bad roster, which is in part why John Robinson's not there anymore. But I think Mike thought he was going to have someone else to run the program with, and instead Rand Carthon was sort of foisted upon him. I think so. That's sort of an arranged marriage, and I think Mike's like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? And then for it to continue to go in the direction that it's gone, it does make you wonder. And then, of course, you have the whatever it was 2.5 months ago where Vrabel is in Foxboro to get his red jacket. Now, look, I don't know this. You don't know this. But, if we're just going to speculate a little bit, chances are Robert, Jonathan, Mike were in a room together at some point. Maybe just talking about life, the kids, everything, having a beer. And then maybe the question came up, how's it going in Tennessee? And I don't know, it's hard not to put those two together. They'll have to deny it because, again, if they didn't deny it and it were to come out, then that's tampering. And we know there can be big penalties for that. But, what are we doing?
Hey, look, you put the label on the front end. You let the people know this is speculation. You can say whatever you want. Okay, Mike Giardi.
Yes.
So that is welcome here in the podcast. You just be honest with the folks listening. This is not hard reporting. I would imagine, too, that their conversation was not dominated by the Hall of Fame or Travis Kelce or Taylor Swift at the time when he came back in mid-October. But I think that is a fair to speculate. And Mike Vrabel, again, it's not even so much, Bill's suddenly vulnerable. Maybe he wants to come back. Things aren't so great in Tennessee. And that arranged marriage, as you said, has gone south. And so we'll see. All right, I mentioned Belichick's press conference. That is really why we're here today, because I don't know what you expected at 7:30 when this press conference started a couple of minutes late, as it wants to do, but that's fine. Bill opens with an opening statement. And typically, the end of the season pressers are pretty good as far as insight and honesty and his willingness to go on a variety of different topics. Today was pretty tight-lipped, I thought initially, and then reread the transcript, and I was right with 2 exceptions. And here was number 1. This from his opening statement, after 6 sentences reflecting on the season, Belichick says, quote, "So, I'm under contract. Do what I always do, which is every day I come in and work as hard as I can to help the team in whatever way I can." And boom, or snap, or bam, Bill breaks a cardinal rule of his own media playbook by not only discussing contracts, but his contracts, which to my knowledge, and you have, a lot more hair, a lot longer tenured, a lot bigger brain to go back in the memory bank for when Bill has spoken generally. I had never, ever, ever heard him say anything about his contract. And in fact, a couple of months ago, when asked about this in WEEI, he says, quote, "Yeah, I'm not talking about that." So this was, by Belichick press conference standards, a bomb that he dropped.
When I heard it, the first thing that came across my mind was, other than the wow factor, and as you said, you go back into the recesses of your mind, I'm like, he's never talked about this before. In fact, the only time I really remember him addressing a contract thing was, of course, the Brady, when they drafted Garoppolo. We all know about Tom's age and contract situation. Generally, he won't go there. And to me, it triggered in my mind, he's drawing the battle lines. If you think this was going to be easy, if you think you were going to do, Mr. Kraft, Robert, Jonathan, that you were going to push me in a certain direction and we're going to have this elegant solution. Yeah, no. The elegant solution would be you pay me what you owe me and we'll figure this out in some way, shape, or form, whether that's me staying or going. But I'm letting you know I have the leverage. You think you do, but I have the leverage. I have a year on my contract. You got to pay me.
Okay, I would, and I might later tonight on TV, very strongly debate the leverage point. But I just want to stay with the quote because, again, him saying I'm under contract is not necessarily new information. It's been reported he's under contract through next season. And so that's not new. But him proclaiming that, to me, obviously, again, early in his opening statement to say I'm under contract is a strategic type of desperation. Because to your point, this is him saying, do it. Go ahead, fire me. I'm not going anywhere. You are going to have to pick me up like the kid who is leaving the birthday party at the bowling alley and still wants to go to the claw one more time and holds on to that as his mom's pulling him away and screaming because Bill just wants to play the claw one more time. He wants to go back. He wants to rebuild the team, as he put it, reconstruction today here, by the way. And I do think those battle lines were drawn in a way. Now, if I'm Belichick and I see what I would describe as some favorable Kraft reporting the last couple of months, or stories come out or things get leaked, obviously things are going to be pent up. And I'm going to make a move. And I would take the same opportunity as he did to make this move. Were you surprised that it stopped there? Or he didn't open up except for one thing, which we'll get to in a second? Like, what? Now you've had more time to digest. Do you think he should have said more? Or is this enough?
No, I think it was enough. I think it was just sort of like the opening salvo in this whole process that we're going to have here that I know, I've been saying all along, I think it should be over. I've said that. I've been on record. I wrote about it. I've talked about it, whatever. But to me, it's like, do it or don't, but just pick one and do it. So you can, and this isn't just about me covering it and keeping us in waiting. You're at a pretty fragile state from an organizational standpoint. What direction are you going to go? Are you going to try to bring the band back together? I mean, we've heard our boy Mike Reese bringing McDaniels and Ziegler. I'm like, why not we just invite everybody back? Dimitrov, Pioli, Charlie Weiss is available. I mean, he could consult.
Con Candy, we'll bring the claw I just referenced. We'll do it's all those games.
Or are you going to take a new direction? And is that direction cleansing this thing completely, blowing it all out and starting with fresh ideas? And quite frankly, having Robert and Jonathan get uncomfortable because even though the relationship with Bill is difficult, because Bill's difficult, you at least knew, you could predict how it was going to go every time you dealt with him. He's going to be gruff. It's going to go this way. He's going to want this. He doesn't want that. Do you want to step outside that comfort zone and hire someone from a different program with different ideas that you're not used to and bring in a GM that you don't know? All these different things that would have to happen. And if you're, especially if you're going to go that way, like I want to start that thing right away. Like I want to know, I want to get those people in the building, and I want to start laying the groundwork for what is going to be a new foundation to the franchise. And the longer you wait on it, I just think we're already seeing names fly off, or not fly off the board, but already people are being requested for interviews, talking to other people. Adam Peters is a name we've all thrown around. San Francisco, well-respected, has some roots here, right? He's already got requests to talk, and it's like the longer you delay the process, is Adam Peters going to wait? Is he going to sit around and wait for you when there's 5 other jobs? And again, there's only 32 GM jobs. There's only 32 head coaching jobs. It's not like they're out there all the time. You can just, I'll pick this one or I'll wait for this one. No, like eventually, if you want to run your own program, you want it to happen. You want it to happen soon.
I'm glad you brought up Adam Peters, because I've made this joke in this podcast before that if I'm searching for anything and I'm in and around the NFL, I have to list Ben Johnson's name first. Like if my toilet breaks and I need a plumber, well, I should call Ben Johnson. Obviously, he can fix this. And I'm just thinking, like if Ben Johnson and Adam Peters, Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator, Adam Peters, high up in the 49ers front office, started an expansion team. And I don't even tell you who's on the roster. Is everyone giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're like 8-8 pushing for a wild card spot? Their stocks publicly have never been higher. Granted, I don't think we should spend much time on them because I don't think either of them are coming to New England. But to your point, the question becomes, okay, why wait? And I think there are a few different reasons for this. Now, number one, to answer my own question about should Bill have said more, I don't think so. I think he said exactly enough to get his point across. I'm not going anywhere. I want to be here. I'm going to make it known that I want to be here. And that's that. So if Robert still wants...
Just can I get quick?
Yeah.
So in covering this man for 24 years, especially in the last, call it the last 10 years, he occasionally will slip up. I think occasionally he'll say something in a press conference and you can see he tries to reel it back in. Talking about Mac, whatever it was, we tried to let him work, whatever. He was going to say work through his problems but I didn't want to do it. But generally, there are so few of those that happen a year that I've said this before, I admire his consistency and his ability to not say anything or just slip that one thing in there. I think it's all very calculated. So I think he knew, this is the outline of what I'm going to say. And that's it. I'm just going to lift this one thing. I'm going to put this one thing on the table and then I'm going to just leave it there. And you guys can do with what you want, but I'm going to put a little pressure on the guys above me to make a decision.
Well, I'm glad you repeated that because I think, some folks would push back on this. Oh, it's media drama. They're pulling small things out that aren't really there. And I would say, again, know the man that you're rooting for. Study what he does and how consistent he is and how historically he's not said anything he doesn't want to. He's the most disciplined interviewee I've ever come across, I've ever seen. He says what he wants to, and that's that. And so when it's in the opening statement, which he's thought about, Michael Holley has written in his books that Bill would take 10 to 15 minutes or every press conference. I can't vouch that he continues to do this, but I would imagine he did this today to go through what am I going to be asked? What do I want to get across? What do I want to say? This, hey, I'm here. I'm obligated to be here was number one on what do I want to get across. Now, the next question is, okay, so what's taking so long? If the Krafts want to move on, Bill wants to stay, why not just fire him? Well, there's the whole ceremony of it, right? To honor the history of the last 24 years, 6 Super Bowls, 13 AFC championship games, whatever division title and number of division titles, you want to do it the right way. Now, if Belichick says, as I think the undertones here expressed, I'm not doing mutual parting of the ways. There's nothing mutual about this. I want to stay, and that's that. And Robert tries to massage it and it doesn't work. Well, then you go, okay, can we trade you? No. Because, and this has been brought up to me, and I can't vouch for this again, but it's worth wondering, if he has a no trade clause in his contract, when they redid it last year, that ends that. And now you're at the point of, okay, we either have to fire you or you come back. And that's why I think this takes time. I don't know if Robert's tried to massage it, but it seems clear to me with these undertones. He's not interested in the mutual parting of the ways. It's going to be ugly, and now it's on the Krafts, as everyone knows, if he does exit. And probably is not interested in a trade either, not to mention his market, as we ran down, might be Atlanta, Dallas, which we can talk about later, and then nobody else.
Yeah. Well, how about Nashville?
That was a lot.
No, how about Nashville?
Okay.
I believe he has a place in Nashville or maybe in the area. So not a stretch to say like he's familiar with the area. Clearly must like the area a little bit to have invested some money into that area. I don't know. Like you just start to Amy Strunk like that. There's a lot of things that would have to happen. The Rand Carthon thing probably would not work, or Rand would just have to, dude, we're propping you up, but he's going to do what he does for the next 3 years, and you either have to go along for the ride or whatever. But you start to think about different options or places that need to make a splash. And despite the record, there's still, I think that's why, one of the reasons why Atlanta would be interested in him. Like, hard to sell that team in that market. Bill Belichick, the one who gave us the worst loss, the thing that's going to be hung on our graves forever. Arthur Blank is going to look at 28-3 for the rest of his life. What if I got Bill in here? What if Bill turned the program around? What if Bill still has a little magic in him and, takes us back to that place and this time we win it? I don't know. I think there are enough people, even though these people are really rich and really smart, I think when it comes to football, I think a lot of them don't know what the hell they're doing, and they do things. It's Bill Belichick, not looking at what happened over the last 4.5 seasons, not looking at how he builds his team, not looking at the way he treats people, way he's going to treat that owner eventually, if not right away. Like, I think that comes into play.
So it's sad to say, but we all knew this was coming. The Patriots season is over. Then again, the NFL playoffs are here, and you can still win on your own at America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. FanDuel right now is offering new customers $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $150 waiting, wanting for you at FanDuel. All in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Believe it, I've used it. Celtics games all the time. You can also find new bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and lots more. Money line, point spread, you name it. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. So the Falcons example made me laugh. And we'll transition to the second thing that he said today, because that's also, you could argue is equally notable, because the leverage he would have, and let's say this is him talking to the part of Robert that wants him to stay versus the part of Robert that thinks he should go, is, okay, I'll be flexible. I'll change. This is like the last pitch before any breakup. I'll do whatever you say you want. I'll stop smoking. I'll, come home early or whatever it is.
Right.
And who knows if that's true, deals with personnel. But the idea that he would go to Atlanta after he broke that franchise with Tom Brady over his knee in the Super Bowl reminds me of the Thanos meme and quote, you could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me, just has to be said. I mean, like that, he's going to have a joke if he goes down there in the opening press conference of like, a lot of history here. We won't talk about him.
Is that Marvel? Did you just nerd out with Marvel stuff on the podcast right now?
Apropos, though, no?
I mean, it's nerdy. It's very nerdy.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
just putting it out there. Hey, Buckhead's beautiful, too. Just saying. Like, Atlanta, what's the draw? Buckhead's really nice.
Okay, let's
Downtown
not
Atlanta.
talk about Buckhead like everyone just said. What the buck is Buckhead?
Buckhead, it's Atlanta. It's a really nice place in Atlanta area.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. I'm educating the people. Why would he want to go to Atlanta?
Nerd. Okay, moving on from the Marvel to the second thing that he said, the personnel control. Here's the other quote.
Yes.
And this was not in the opening statement. I do think, that's my personal belief, this was also intentional. Again, he's deliberate, he's dispassionate, and he's disciplined. Keep that in mind every time he's at the podium. Quote, when asked about, would you relinquish personnel control? Yeah, look, I'm for whatever collectively we decide as an organization is the best thing to help our football team. Which, yes, is a variation of just we did what we thought was best for the football team. Collectively, though, is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Do you buy that, first of all, that he would relinquish personnel control to stay?
Yes, but I think it would have to come with, well, I shouldn't say definitively yes. I think he could be convinced of it, but I think it would have to be one of his acolytes, which I am totally against. Like, because I'll say this a million times, I don't care. Pick a name. John Robinson, Dimitrov, Pioli, Ziegler, in some way, shape, or form, to some degrees, like really high, they owe Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick made them. His success rubbed off on them, and therefore they were able to get jobs elsewhere running their own programs. And by the way, none of those guys, I guess Thomas had the 1 year in the Super Bowl, and then it went downhill. John built a playoff team, and then all of a sudden stopped being able to draft, and they went in the tank, and now that roster is in complete shambles. I mean, they might have a quarterback, so maybe they're in a little bit better shape than the Patriots are, but it's minute. I don't think any one of those guys could come in here and Robert Kraft could say, Bill, you're answering, or he's in charge. He's going to pick, and you're going to coach. You really think they're all going to be deferential to Bill? I'm sorry, I just don't believe that that's the case. I believe that Bill intimidates the crap out of a lot of people, and I don't think those people are any different. And so you can come back here with the best intentions that they're going to run the program and you're just going to coach the players that we pick. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be like, well, Bill, I'm thinking about this guy. Nah, I don't like that guy. But you know what? My friend Urban Meyer coached this guy in Florida, and he says, so he's 71 years old. Andrew, he's going to be 72 years old before the next season starts. I'm not that age. He's got me by a bit. I don't want to change. I hate change. And I think that most people, as they get older, are less embracing of change than, hey, when I'm 25, you say, hey, maybe you should try, I was a writer, maybe you should try TV. Well, okay, I'll give it a whirl. I did it for 25 years. Now I'm back to doing this other thing. But go back to the other thing, kind of difficult to get my head and brain wrapped around it. And I think he's been doing it for 20-some-odd years longer, 50 years in the NFL or about to be. He wants to do it his way. In his mind, his way works all the time. And you saddle me with Mac Jones, you did this, you did that, and now all of a sudden I can't coach? No, please, I can coach. Give me a semi-decent, semi-competent quarterback, and I'll be right back where I always was, on top.
Well, I had a next question, and now I don't think I could ask it, which is why could this work? Because let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm with you, and that I think people hear this sentiment from him. Again, I'll read it one more time. Yeah, look, I'm for whatever collectively we decide as an organization is the best thing to help our football team, and that was in response to a question about, hey, would you give up personnel control? If he's telling the truth there, and that would include handing over the keys to the front office, it does sound like an olive branch. It does sound like the simplest solution available to the Krafts, that you keep the greatest coach of all time and you remove his weaknesses with roster building, which are just self-evident at this point. Forget the 29-38 record. Just look at the draft. Look at the last three free agent classes. And then someone else does a better job and he looks like a better coach and we move on. Except what you just said, how actionable this is. It just doesn't seem plausible if it's someone in the family who came up under Bill, learned under him, and reported to him to then turn the tables and go, yeah, this is actually what we're going to do. What you want, it's not going to happen right now. We're going to do it this way. Or we're going to bring in more analytics because this model says this. I believe in that. I've evolved. You tend to reject this stuff. We're going to do it my way. That being said, do you see any way that actually happens? Is there an actionable person? If there is a person, who would it be that could make that scenario work in a way that, again, if I had to bet, no reporting, it's probably how Robert Kraft wants to do this, right?
From a PR standpoint, it's the safest thing for Robert to do. And I've said this a bazillion times over the last whatever. Robert doesn't just like to be loved. He loves to be loved. And he can, and his people can put on Bill Belichick the Tom Brady thing. Well, but Robert, you agreed to the contract that said we're not going to franchise you. And you have said repeatedly, we felt like Tom had done so much for us that he earned the right to do what he wants. Thinking that at the end of the day, he's still going to come back to me because that's what he's always done for 20 years. He decided not to. It's a regrettable decision. And look, at the time, I thought it was the right decision. I thought sticking with Bill over Tom made sense because I thought Bill had more time, and I thought Bill's ability to run the program whatever, was greater than it is at this point.
We don't have to do the revisionist history in this, though. Like, I just, the Brady thing, I think, is fair. Like, it's important that Robert doesn't want to be the guy that shoot away Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback, and then 4 years later.
But I don't think he wants. So when the other thing I keep saying, and it's like, it sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, but until he does it, I'm not going to believe he's going to do it, because I think Robert is sentimental. I don't think Jonathan is, but I think Robert is, and I think Robert still has the hammer. I mean, I think Jonathan does a lot of stuff on the day-to-day, but this decision is still going to be Robert's decision. And quite frankly, he's in his 80s. It might be the last big hire that Robert makes, the last I steered the program back in the right direction again. And I think there is fear that I'm going to get stuck with this, and then he's going to go someplace else, Atlanta, Nashville, Chicago, whatever, Washington, and all of a sudden, a year or two, he's going to do what Tom did. And he's going to be standing there in front of everybody with the freaking Lombardi trophy, and my program's going to be 6-11, and we're going to be looking at, well, maybe we need another change. Maybe we need to find another guy. There's a fear there that I think there shouldn't be at this point, because you're, again, 4.5 years of but he's an 80-something-year-old man, and he's sentimental, and I think this is not the easiest thing to do.
I agree to an extent, and just to put a bow on what
do you have a name? Earlier. Do you have a name that you think can actually make it work?
I need to pull myself out of the rabbit hole. The Brady point I get from a legacy standpoint to a degree, again, but the decision in the moment was justifiable from the sense of he was going to come back and throw to Damiere Byrd and Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi. Like, the version of Tom Brady in the second half of the 2019 season was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I understand he had a lot more in the tank, but he had more in the tank when he was surrounded by much better players, which Bill could not afford to him given their cap situation and given his track record and history of investing at those positions. Wasn't going to happen. Letting go of Brady at that time made sense. It's a bummer in some sense that Brady absolutely won the breakup, then won the reunion. What happened, happened. I don't think you can look at that in the same way you wouldn't hold on to a toxic, broken relationship and be like, well, what if they get married in a year? Am I going to feel bad? No, live your life. Split, wash your hands. If Bill goes on, good for him, given everything that he did here. As far as answering my own question and now yours, which we're just like passing back and forth.
Sure time.
I have a couple names.
Okay.
But what I fear is exactly what you outlined. Like, Bill intimidating this person and pushing his way to get final say in a way that maybe gets back to the Krafts, maybe doesn't. But people who want to get back into the game as GMs, like a John Robinson, maybe a Bob Quinn, that aren't in there right now, have the ties, maybe the trust of the Krafts. I don't know how the Krafts feel about either of those candidates, or honestly, their interest level. But there are people who have a little leverage right now. And Bill might be able to, as Patricia supposedly did in Detroit, not roll over, but be able to still get his way, even if the first few months we're going to pretend like, no, this was their call. Mm-hmm. So they're not new names, but it would have to be someone in the family, right?
Yeah, and I'm so just not on that thought thing. I just can't. It still comes back to me the fact that they're going to look at him. Even if you're Bob Quinn and you've been removed from this place for 10 years, John's been removed from this place for whatever, 8-10 years. It's still Bill. I got my job because of the success we had as an organization, but you're the greatest coach. How much did I really have to do with that? I might have scouted that guy. I might have recommended this, but like in general, you put this thing together. And it doesn't sound great, but I was riding your coattails a little bit. I mean, at least John went out and built his own program and had success building his own program before it fell off. What does Bob Quinn have to, that roster was never any good. And then when he decided to move on to Matt, then it just imploded.
Right. And I think people change to a degree. I don't know what John Robinson has been up to. I know Bob Quinn, I believe, has been in Cleveland, and that's a very different front office. Hails from the Eagles model. They're deep into analytics. Like, there's probably a pitch there to say, hey, your blind spots, I will shine a light on and we'll fix right away. Like, resources, information, the processes, the systems. Again, it's a different pitch to Robert in a meeting once or twice versus day to day to day with Bill. But you just couldn't bring in, if you're going to have a GM, someone who hails from a different philosophy and system and beliefs, even like scouting process and grades, than what Bill does if Bill's a head coach, because you just need those two people in alignment. Okay, so you and I are in agreement that it's really hard to see a GM coming in here and handing off the keys for all the reasons we just said. And so I just come back to, I think it's a waiting game. And whether this gets ugly or not, Bill is, as you said, drawn a line in the sand. And they'll probably take some time. I think they owe it to each other to take some time and try to negotiate or sway the other. But I think ultimately, I don't have a timeline on this, they're going to end up where they likely started, which is it's probably best to move on. The Krafts don't want to fire Belichick. But look, Stacey James gets paid good money for a good reason. They can put out some kind of statement on their own if they really want to and have to massage it unilaterally.
Yeah, I agree with this because I haven't been of the mind that it was going to happen quickly. And when the report on the broadcast yesterday with Glazer was like, I think it's going to happen quickly. And then but then there was the caveat, well, unless there's a trade, like to me, this is all part of the process of negotiating, which is why I felt like it was going to take some time. And this was my argument about the idea of, some people floated, well, maybe in the last 4 to 6 weeks, he helped sway them in the other direction or gave them pause, like the team was responding to him. And I will say this, I think there are players that did respond to him.
Oh, yes.
I think there are but I think there are a lot of those guys that were responding to the fact that they're free agents or they have no guaranteed money on their contract. And I'm sorry that it's a beautiful narrative that, these guys, they played hard to build to the end. Yeah, there definitely were some. But I think there were a lot that said, I don't give a damn who coaches me. I got to get a contract. And if I put out crappy film on top of the crappy film that I already put, then the chances of me getting the contract I want continue to diminish. So, or hey, maybe I'm not auditioning for Bill. Maybe I'm auditioning for Giardi. Maybe I'm auditioning for, I don't know, Josh McDaniels, who's back in the area and is watching our games and probably has access to all the film. Like, maybe I agreed to that fact a little bit, but I think it got way overblown. It's one of those easy narratives like, I played hard for Bill. No, I think they're playing hard for themselves and their bank accounts. That's what I think.
And it can be both. Right, I think it could be 10% Bill, and then you're playing mostly for yourself, but it's technically true when you say, no, I'm going hard to play for that man. And look, it's hard to play football anything less than fully motivated, okay? Which isn't to say that guys give the same level of effort every week in and week out, but just simply for your safety at a sport played at 100 miles an hour with collisions in every play between some of the greatest, strongest athletes in the world, you have to be paying attention and have to want that to keep going. So whether it's a little bit for Bill, mostly for themselves or not, whatever. But I want to end on this as far as Bill goes, because we brought up Atlanta, and Atlanta matters, not necessarily in a way that the interest might be mutual, but that's a little leverage for Bill saying, okay, well, I could go there. Like, that's an owner who wants me, a market that needs me, a team that has already stabilized my weakest positions as an evaluator. Got a good running back, got a good tight end, receivers, not a problem. I just need to do everything else. I'm okay at pretty much everything else. Even if he doesn't want to go there, that's there for him to point to. The other part about this waiting game is of how long this goes might depend on a football game down in Texas that will kick off just after 4 o'clock between the Cowboys and the Packers. And I was not of the mind all season that Bill would go to Dallas in any kind of way because Mike McCarthy's is there. They're playing well. They've got a good record. Bill wants personnel control. However, in light of the last comment that we just deliberated and went through, that he might be willing to give up personnel control, that is a front office, given what I understand is a good relationship with Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones from Belichick, and one he respects from an eye for talent, always bring up the Pro Bowlers when they play them now seemingly once every 2 years, that he would probably have a say and be okay not with having final say, as Bill Parcells did, which is another little bit of beautiful symmetry here. What do you think about Dallas? If they lose on Sunday, that Bill wants to wait and drag this out, if anything, just to give his market a chance to balloon a little bit?
I don't think there's any question. And Dallas is a situation that I'm sure he looks at and says, well, I can get the record pretty fast there.
Yes.
That's doable. And I could get the trophy and then shove it up all your hindquarters in New England that doubted me and thought that I should be gone and wanted to turn it over to Mayo or someone else. And like the whole notion, absolutely. I mean, and look, they're going to they're going to run into decisions where they have to make about certain players, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, in terms of can they pay all these guys the big dollars. I think Jerry will figure out a way to do it. And
compare those decisions to, hey, do we want to bring back Anthony Jennings? And that's not meant to be slander for Anthony Jennings. Just hold Micah Parsons in one hand and a guy who's been one of the best edge defenders, at least in the AFC as far as the tape that I've watched. And Anthony Jennings had a career year. But, the talent is not comparable. Of course you would take those problems in Dallas versus the ones in New England. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Well, there are some that believe that Bill wanted to draft Micah Parsons a few years ago.
Oh.
So now I get to work with the guy that may be the closest thing to LT, which I think is a stretch, but whatever. His name does get brought up in conjunction with LT. Yeah, sure, that's attractive. And think what I can do with that guy. Think of the things that I can do. Think of the nightmares I can cause for opposing offenses. And that's what I do. And then I already got a guy who can run the offense. And if I can get him he did a better job cutting down the turnovers this year. I can just get him to play at that level. Got an elite receiver in CeeDee Lamb. Oh, I guarantee, Jerry, we'll be in the NFC Championship game. Guarantee you. Lock it up.
Villainous hand rubbing.
Oh,
as easy goes down the roster, right?
Yeah.
That's just everything I could do.
You start looking at and look, we talked about it way back in late September, early October when they played that game. Just leading up to it, you're like, you put these rosters side by side, and we didn't know that this was what it was going to look like. We were all still of the mind that 7, 8, 9 wins, it's possible. They
might win. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. How'd that go? And then you watched it play out. You were there. We were there. The beautiful stadium, great facilities, by the way, easy to sell. Come on. Not even a comparison. That place is ready to win. The owner's got more money than he knows what to do with. Yeah, I can get the record in 2 years.
Let the Johnny Walker Blue flow, Mike Giardi.
Yes.
Jerry Jones, big fan of his scotch.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. You had a tweet today.
Scotch.
I love scotch.
Yes.
Stop speaking Spanish to me. I don't know how old that reference is. This is part of getting old.
Literally been here, Ron. We've literally been here the entire time.
2005. Anyway, you had a tweet today.
You got to watch it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Anchorman.
And as you were wont to do, you tweet these things out that I miss, and somehow they pop up in the following feed, or they're retweeted by someone else. I'm like, how did I not see this from Giardi, which has some sort of insight or angle, or I wish I had seen this basically a lot earlier. And your tweet today was, which is both a combination of just a small delight and a little bit annoying. Quote, I cannot stress enough how in the dark staffers feel in Foxboro right now. They're operating as they would under normal circumstances, but have a cloud of uncertainty hanging over their heads. A number of coaches are in the final year of their contracts. So between that and Belichick's situation, don't know if they should be shipping off resumes and getting boxes to clean out offices, or if it's time to hunker down for one last chance to fix this. What can you add to this cloud of uncertainty and the coaches kind of being, stuck in purgatory here as we wait the decision on Bill Belichick?
I'll just say this: that the people that I talked to that gave me that sort of information and that feeling, it's a different feeling than the one they had 6 weeks ago. I think 6 weeks ago, that even though it wasn't great, they're like, that the feeling was, it's still Bill. We'll figure out a way to go on a little bit of a run here, and this you guys are all crazy, and this will just be nonsense. And then I don't know, maybe it's us. Maybe there's the constant deluge of talk about Bill's future and having him field questions about it in press conferences made it more real. But there definitely is that feeling I don't really know which way this is going to go. And in fact, if I had to guess, it's probably not going to be here. And, as usual with the jackhammers on X and whatever, you get the people, whatever. It's like, sorry, was that a good imitation? I don't
do it again, please.
I don't know that I could. It was in the moment. I just felt it. Maybe it'll come back later. But I don't care whether you feel bad for them or not, but I think there are people that don't have the right perception of what these guys' lives are like and what's at stake here. A lot of these guys aren't making $1 million or $500,000. So, you take away the check, just happened to me not too long ago. You take away the check, and it's like, okay, I got bills to pay and mouths to feed, and like.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even want to stop at the $500,000 because a lot of people would hear that and go, "Oh, I would take 200." Like that's not a problem. It's more to the point of you were underpaid in New England. You come to New England, you take the Belichick discount to learn and work for him. And if there's not a payoff of telling your wife or family or kids or any kind of people that you were there to support that I could make more, but I want to be here. I want to live here. I want to work a couple extra hours per day under him. There will be a payoff for us long term. And there's no payoff. Okay, obviously you're financially set, or you should be, unless you're just absolutely burning money away. But that shakes you in a foundational kind of way. Work life, your family life, if there is no payoff in this uncertainty, because as we've seen, guys are getting fired and they're on to their next job already, or letting their agents for virtually all of these coaches do that work. But if they're going to say hit pause because Bill hasn't sorted out his business, then they're losing time, which means they're then losing more money.
Yeah, and look, I understand your point, and I get that. I'm glad you clarified it. But I always say to people, like, you can't look at sports money versus what you make selling insurance or being a sports writer or whatever it is that you do. Like, there's different levels of it. But okay, this is what I'm making. You become into that, like, okay, so I'm making this. I've made this 3 years, 4 years in a row. Now you start to live that life. Even if you're being frugal, you're still like, okay, I have this. I'm putting this in the bank. Now all of a sudden the opportunities are starting to dry up because this, as we think, is going to drag on. Maybe you're taking a lesser job. Maybe you don't even get the job in the league. Maybe you have to go to cop. Like there's so many things that can happen, the trickle-down effect. And for Bill, I don't think it's going to be all that difficult to find a job because he's Bill. I think some of these other guys, especially the ones that came here recently, what did you guys do when you were there? You went to the one playoff game? Oh, you lost by 30? Like, you were 4-13 this year? There's not this big shine on these guys. Like, no one's coming in here saying, I got to pluck this guy, I got to pluck this guy, I got to pluck this guy. I mean, whatever. I was going to make the noise again, but I didn't want to do it again. I thought I might have hurt my throat.
No, it was a spectacular floor routine, and then you face planted on the dismount. That's that.
I was right there, and don't do it.
Finnish judge is very upset with you. The Russian judge just left. You're not even getting a score from them. Yeah, look, what I can add to this is that there are multiple assistants, as you said in your tweet, that are in contract years, and their contracts are going to be up in days, if not weeks, if not days. And they are on offense, they are on defense, they are on special teams. And given the performance of the team, you at home might be happy. But again, I would encourage you just to empathize with people who are going to be looking for work and have their timeline taken out of their hands to a degree over the next couple of days. And that's all. I'm not asking for any extra empathy for these folks who have earned more money than you or I will probably ever see. But it's an unusual dynamic, and it makes life difficult in a way that, yeah, they can go on preparing for 2024, but they all lived 4-13. Most of them have lived 29 and 38 over the last 4 years, and they understand the reality of their business dictates whether your contract's up or not. Those people are gone. And so that's what they're banking here, though, and still betting on Bill. And it's, look, you had one coach jump ship for a lateral job at Syracuse where he's, you would hope, making more money, but already left. A small staff, and it's just it's a little shaky. The locker room, though, you kind of touched upon this. I think the players, the labor, the product get lost in this conversation between Bill, the assistants, future dynamic trades, blah, blah, blah. What has been your sense talking to guys, maybe even outside the locker room, of just where their head has been at the last few weeks? Because I think that's an important final piece to this picture here.
Well, I did want to say when you sent me the rundown, I was thinking this was going to go a different way, but I did want to say, like, it, and I know there was a lot of talk about Matthew Slater yesterday, but like it didn't resonate the same way because we all spent our attention and our focus on the head coach and where the program is going and what's going to happen and what's next. And yeah, people wrote stories about Matthew Slater, and they might have written stories about David Andrews being the only guy to play 100% of the snaps, and the emotion that he spoke with yesterday, and telling us that he's going to have to think about it. We all believe he's going to come back, but like there was real emotion. Like that's the kind of stuff the human aspect of it that gets lost in this because we're all hyper focused on this one thing. And you can say, well, you still could write the story. Well, we did write the story.
We did.
Most of you didn't spend the time reading it. You spent your time on the other stuff. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't carry the same weight that it normally would have. So that bummed me out a little bit. I mean, I understand that's the way it works, but like, I would have liked to have honored those guys and the effort some of those guys gave in much greater detail than we were able to do in the last 24 hours. And just talking to them, like, look, I think there are definitely guys, and you mentioned it, you said 10% that they're playing for him. Like, there are guys that definitely feel a great sense of loyalty to Bill. I mean, David's clearly one of those guys, yes. Right? Like, and if Bill's not here, that's a bummer because that's what you've known. And while it's a pain in the ass to play for, you did experience success until recently, and maybe it works for you. David Andrews probably says, what Bill taught me, what Scar taught me before as an assistant, have things that have allowed me to be in the league when no one thought I should be in the league, when I was an undrafted guy. When you in your first year replaced me with Brian Stork when I was playing well, because Stork had a greater upside and he was a draft pick and I wasn't. So I think there is some of that. But I think by and large, what's next? What's next for me? What's next for us? If you hire this guy, if I go out and play the way I'm capable of, if the system works for me, then it's great. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. And I will say, I think that there, especially on the defensive side, I think there are plenty of guys that have great respect for Mayo. And if Mayo was the in-house choice and decision, that they would be like, okay, cool. You know, like, I know what this guy's about. Unless he changes dramatically from this role to the other. And obviously, there will be some change being in charge of the entire program. But, like, if he still treats me the way he did before, then I'm confident that this is going to work out for me and work out for us. So I just think it's the nature of the beast, right? I don't think they have, because of the business side of it, as Jabril Peppers told us, he found out to get traded from Cleveland in the OBJ trade, right, via Twitter. Like, that's just the nature of the deal. Like, cool to get to work with Bill Belichick, the greatest of all time. But if it's someone else, I still got to play hard. I still got to earn my dollars, and I still got to get my next check.
Yep, because that's business. It's not personal. And if you want a personal touch, I mean, you spoke about the lessons David Andrews took from Bill Belichick and Dante Scarnecchia. I did a whole story on this. Going around the locker room, I think I had 9 guys quoted, talked to some more, but you only have so much space. In a newspaper in 2024. And it just said, what did Bill mean to you? And Josh Uche is talking about, I don't have kids yet, but the stuff I learned here, the stuff I learned at work, I will pass on to them because of how it shaped me. So that was
a great quote. It pains me to tell you that, but that was a great quote.
Thank you. I made it up all myself.
Well, I figured. I wasn't going to say that. Josh, you gave yourself away.
Incredibly thoughtful guy in Josh Uche. So
yes, very smart fella.
I'm glad you brought up Matthew Slater. Frankly, though, I don't have much more to add, except for I also wish he had more of a send-off, and they made an effort, showed him on the video board a whole lot, the sweatshirts, the tributes from Bill, from players. During the week we asked about him. I wrote another story about Matthew Slater's speeches and what they've meant and why they've meant more this season, which I think is self-evident, but nonetheless, more good quotes. Thank you, Kyle Duggar. Talking about him glowing in the middle. I will say, though, the losing also swept up Devin McCourty, who was supposed to have a send-off at halftime of the Monday night game against the Chiefs. As we all remember, that got flexed. And so his tribute had to be changed. And there's a lot that's been lost in the Bill shuffle. But ultimately, when it comes down to head-to-head, who gets the tiebreaker between Bill possibly leaving and any player, as great as they are, Matthew Slater, maybe Hall of Famer, certainly Hall of Fame human being, Bill wins that every single time. So, speaking of Bill, it has been put to me, another one of your little tweets, using the word modernize, that from people who have been in the front office and left, people who have heard things about the front office, that there are things there that are missing from a resource standpoint. I've brought up analytics a bunch of times. I wrote about sports science and how they don't necessarily invest as much as other teams. And I would say the results speak for themselves. Again, 29 and 38. You've written about the same modernizing set. I mean, what else can we add here besides, even if Bill stays, even if they bring in a GM, even if this works, there's kind of an infrastructure update or refreshing or rejuvenation that needs to happen anyway. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, and I think that's some of the push and pull that you have as well, with the idea of if you feel like you want to bring Bill back, how do you get it to that place? And I think when I first started to hear the word, I think that's before Mayo had, whatever, the quotes about Mayo rubbing people the wrong way. So there was still plenty of shine on Giardi, which some of that's been kicked off, although I think Giardi handled himself very well in his sort of responses to that story a couple weeks later. But the notion that ownership looks at Giardi and sees Bill to a certain degree, and I don't mean the gruff, that exterior, it's my way, the highway, but sort of a modernized version of Bill that has the business acumen that he did, and that props him up and Mayo up in their eyes. Like he went somewhere else and he had some success, and now he's come back here and quickly climbed up the hill, to show us that this is going to be a head coach, whether it's here or somewhere else in the relatively near future. And so it's hard for me to say it without sort of attaching it to Giardi, because that's maybe the first time that I started to hear that. But it's little things too. Like, can you imagine you bring in someone who says, we're investing way more in analytics? How many times would they have had to buzz the electric shock collar on Belichick when he decided to punt at the 50-yard line or from the 45 going in? Or, hey, even when you're down 17 points and you probably don't have a chance, well, who gives a damn if we lose by 30 or we lose by, maybe just take a shot. Maybe we catch lightning in a bottle. The other, oh, wow, they went for it. They got it. Oh, wow, they scored. Now it's a 10-point game. Get a little tight. Maybe Belichick still got the magic. You don't know. Instead, Bill just kicked the ball. Just kick the ball again.
Well, I mean analytics even, because Ernie Adams handled some of that, right? And Evan Rothstein did for a little bit. I don't think he has those duties anymore from what I've been told. But it's more integrating them into their draft processes, where I'm asking, hey, how much is this involved? And it doesn't have to be, a bunch of nerds with a lot of math. It's just timing, or how quickly. I don't want to know about your bench press reps. It's Nick Caserio talked about this. It's Sloan. How quickly are you getting it off of your chest, which mimics the same motion of shooting your hands out for a block or a pass rush move? That kind of force that you're generating, shooting your hands off of your chest or from this position, that matters. Are the Patriots measuring those things? Are they using the tracking data to understand the separation in college and how much that correlates or translates to the NFL when looking at receivers or running backs who generate X amount of missed tackles per rush? Not all of this is so complicated. And yet the default has just been to rely on Bill and his decision-making. When you're a genius, which he is and remains, that works out more often than not. But when you start to regress, it shows big time, because everything is built around him. And so when he sinks, it takes everything down with him.
Well, how many times did you write the story about winning in the margins? And to me, what you're talking about is, again, it's sort of winning in the margins. You don't always – yes, the end result comes on Sunday or Monday night or whenever you're playing, wins and losses. But what does it take to get there? And could you have found yourself a little advantage in the draft in April, in free agency, or even on your own roster? Maybe you're underutilizing someone that, if you looked at the right data – or if maybe the coach just got it out of his head that this is the way it has to be, and you just listen to a new idea and we're willing to tweak it, which is something that when he was rolling, he did. But again, the default is he had Tom. If you were close and you had Tom, you had a good chance of pulling those games off. But I think that they've lost a lot of games now in the margins. And when he sits there and tells us whatever it was 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, again, calculated, how many one-score games that we've been in, how many one-score losses that we've been in. Yeah, dude, right. And you used to win those games. And, again, you won them because you had Tom. But you outlasted teams. You outsmarted teams. How many times did we do – I mean, they did a segment on the radio, right? It was Zolak and Bertrand. The other team is stupid. Because you were smarter than them, and you just waited them out sometimes. You put pressure on them until they cracked. And now you're the one that cracks. But you're still walking around thinking you're the smartest guy in the room, and you're not. And it's okay to not be. You had a hell of a run, but you could tweak it. Maybe you could find that way, and he hasn't been willing to do that. Even go back to the Cole Strange pick, right? And why am I drawing a blank on the athletic measurements there? Are they changing the way they're doing things? Because Cole's this kind of freaky athlete, and no, they just went back to doing the same things that they've always done. That might have been the outlier. And then guess what? The outlier He's okay. He's
Well,
fine.
he's right to have that confidence.
Right,
Altogether,
absolutely.
the resume speaks for itself. I've called him many times and believe it, greatest coach of all times. I've also heard stories in the draft room where they'll build the board and you come around to the third or fourth round and you see who's on up next. Top-rated player, graded on everything. Months and months, years of work goes into this. And he looks and just goes, "You're that guy who's 2 columns over," and just pulls them. And you can't say anything because he's Bill Belichick, and you trust that intuition. Clearly, intuition has failed to your point. And so what I would say is you modernize the processes. Also, one thought on the one-score games. It's a fair point that stuff tends to normalize. 500 record over a period of time. They're 4-8 or 4-9, whatever it is this year. Not all one-score games are made equal when you are losing to the Giants and the Jets and the Commanders and the Raiders. As far as the GM, I'd heard from someone.
That was, by the way, that was just quickly.
Yeah.
Maybe of all the things that he said this year in press conferences, that might have been the one that rubbed me the wrong way the most. I just didn't like it.
A favorite phrase in your place of work.
The whole league is about one-score games. Like, legitimately. That's why it's the parody, and like you look at the AFC. Who's okay? Baltimore, they've got the. But like, if you told me Cleveland was going to come out of the AFC, I could be bought. You could sell that on me. I've seen them be awesome this year at times. Like, the whole league is built around that. So don't give me that, because that's pretty much every game every week is a one-score game. So that's crap. That's stupid.
2 episodes ago,
stupid, but not that stupid.
I got a mailbag question, and it asked this: who is the grumpiest member of the Patriots beat, and why is it Mike Giardi?
That is just fairly
And
accurate.
here it is, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to wrap up, though, and I'll just say this. In speaking about the processes and analytics, and could Bill coexist with the GM? Could he stay, or is he going to go? I know the Krafts have done some homework as far as front office candidates and putting out some feelers. Again, this is not something I can really expound upon anymore, which is why I've not written it just yet. But they didn't waste the last 2 months going, oh, maybe it'll turn around now, as Robert supposedly believed it might in Germany when they fell on their face, and supposedly soon after that, conversations were had and a decision was made. We don't know, as it is now 5:30 Monday night. But I think they are prepared in a way that they should have been. I think Bill is prepared in a way that he can certainly back channel through his agent, which, yes, he has one. It's been the same guy for decades, okay? And understand what his market is when he goes into these meetings, having already drawn, as you said, a battle line. Is there anything else that we have not covered from today or the last couple of weeks you think is pertinent to what might come next?
No, but I do want to say that we were talking about the tweet about the staffers and being uncertain and talking about the money, and people don't quite understand or don't want, like, that's more money than I made. If you don't have empathy for those people or anyone who loses a job, like, I'm gonna have empathy for Bill Belichick, even though I think Bill Belichick's fine. Like, he's fine. He's made a crap ton of money. He owns half of Nantucket. He's got like 7 other houses. The dude is fine. He doesn't have to work another day of his life. He doesn't want to. But even then, like, to watch the way this played out and to see how it was sad. Like, the last game was sad. There was 35,000 people in the stands. Like, for Bill Belichick's last game, and I get the weather sucked and it was miserable, and they lost the game. They played like crap, like they've done for a better part of the year. But like, that sucked. It's like, and I understand, like, very few people get to go out on top. John Elway is like he won Super Bowls and then he retired. Like, you usually don't get to call your shot and walk off into the sunset. For as great as Brady was last year, wasn't awesome, and then he retires. But like, I don't know. I wanted there to be more. I felt like he deserves more. People think that you wrote a column about this, and I was glad that you did. Like, people think we hate him. Oh, he's driven me nuts. I think he's incredibly frustrating to deal with. I don't hate Bill Belichick. I don't stay up at night scheming of ways to get Bill Belichick. Like, just don't. I got to watch a lot of awesome football for over 2 decades, and that will never change. And he was partly responsible for that. He was the architect of it. So, like, to me, I wish there was something better. I wish there could have been 68,000 in the stands chanting for Bill, applauding him acknowledging it. And maybe that'll come down the road if they build him a statue and, whatever. But in the moment, and I guess I don't know how it would have worked, but in the moment, it just felt kind of empty. Felt like he deserved more.
I think that is exceptionally well put, and only because you mentioned my column.
No, it's very good. It's very good. It was very good.
It's truly well said by you. I think it deserves a mention at the end because, again, we talk about roster management, poor coaching and results and all these different things. The bottom line is, we should all choose gratitude at the end. And that's what that column was about. Before you say goodbye, say thank you. And that's decision, that choice, like a lot of choices, is a reflection on, us as writers or reporters, or you as a person, or maybe you as a coach. And if Bill is forced to say goodbye, it sounds like, I don't know for sure, but I would guess, knowing Robert for all the reasons we discussed, he will have the opportunity to say goodbye in a way that will be more mutual than it won't be. Bill's choices in the past have been more grudge-like, and that's his prerogative. That's absolutely what he wants to do. It will be really interesting, understanding he will come back and we'll all praise him and it'll be the greatest of all time statue and all that, how he chooses to end this. Because when you go back to Tom Brady, it was showing up to Robert Kraft's house, informing him then, hug it out in person, an Instagram post, a lot of gratitude there at the end. And so I wish Bill had something better, certainly than losing to the Jets, so there's a lot of snowy symmetry in there. As far as what happened next, though, he has a lot of control over that more than what happens at a football game, and that says a lot for a head football coach with as much power as he does. And I hope that if this is the end, this is the exit, it goes better than a snowy 17-3 loss to the Jets. And I'm not sure that it won't be even messier than that. But we'll see.
Yeah, I have my fingers crossed that it will be nicer and cleaner. But our history with Bill tells us that the grudge will be held, and it might take a little while to get over. And I just hope if that's the case, that it gets over long enough for the sides to come together and hug it out. 2 years from now, whenever it is, that's what I hope for.
Yeah. Well, congrats to us. We made it through. I have one X Twitter notification right now. It has to do with the Panthers requesting permission to speak with some guy you've never heard of and we don't care about. So we made it through. Bill is still the head coach and GM of the Patriots. No decision. We will post this. Hopefully you can enjoy it home. And I would just ask, again, choose some gratitude for everyone who's listened to rate and review on iTunes, because we are eternally grateful there, and it helps us grow. And this has been a lot of fun, thanks to guests like Mike, who I think is our most popular guest and one of the people's most popular guests. So thank you, sir. I will be bugging you again.
I have a question for you before you sign off.
Fire away.
Because I hijacked the end of this. Michigan or Washington?
Okay, well, by the time people listen to this, that game's going to be over. But I will be on the record first.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm just saying, the Russian judge just gave me the bird as she did for you 15 minutes ago with your own dismount, this podcast.
Okay, fine.
Go Dogs. Beat Michigan. And I hope Michael Penix pulls away, and that receiving core, which is a ton of fun, gives one bird from the Pac-12 on the way out. Not that I really care about the conferences. I think that caring about the conferences in college football is so silly and overrated. I spent all year hating these teams, and then as soon as it's over, I'm like, oh no, go you! Like we're blood brothers. Anyway, I like Washington. Have a soft spot for the city of Seattle. I think what they've done is awesome. Incredible story. Go Dogs.
I like it. I'm with you. And then John Harbaugh is the next coach of the Jim Harbaugh.
Oh my God, Harbaugh has no one in. This goes for current NFL coordinators. No one has worked harder to be an NFL head coach the last 3-4 years, from things that I've heard, than Jim Harbaugh. That's it. That dude wants out. He has wanted out, and I think he will get out as soon as that game is over. But yeah, I don't know. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. I'm with you. Go Dogs.
See ya.